Bueno, bienvenidos a una nueva ProductTank. Para los que no conocen qué es ProductTank, ProductTank nació en Londres hace unos cuantos años. Empezó a juntar gente de producto y diciendo, bueno, nada, necesitamos hablar con alguien, compartir experiencias, y empezaron como una meetup a crear grupos. Y nada, desde ahí esto se fue expandiendo, esta cultura de las meetups. En 90 ciudades hay 75.000 miembros asociados a ProductTank. Estas son todas las ciudades que están. Tenemos un newsletter y tenemos 2 conferencias al año donde se juntan expertos de producto a hablar de productos. Es una en San Francisco y una en Londres. Pero lo más importante es esto, ¿no? Que en todas las ciudades se trata de mantener este espíritu, que todos nos juntemos a hablar de producto, que todos compartamos nuestros problemas, aprendamos de los otros y tengamos esta comunidad. Bueno, hoy va a hablar Ali Sadat, que es el VP de producto de Medallia. Desde ya agradecemos muchísimo a Medallia por las instalaciones, la picada increíble como siempre, y el lugar y toda la infraestructura. La verdad que muy agradecido siempre de estar acá. Y lo hago corta, para los que quieren ver las fotos, ver los videos, ver las otras charlas anteriores y estar al tanto de estas meetups, estamos en Facebook en un grupo, en LinkedIn en otro grupo y en meetup.com. Ahí nos buscan como ProductTank Buenos Aires. Y nada, los invitamos a que se registren y estar al tanto de todas las novedades, próximas charlas, próximos eventos, y se buscan en las fotitos de hoy. Gracias.
Do you mind if I introduce in Spanish?
Huh?
In Spanish, fine?
Go for it.
Okay.
She just did it in Spanish. You did a good job.
Okay. Bueno, vemos muchas caras conocidas. Muchas gracias por lo que vinieron. Es un gusto grande. Para mí esta meetup en particular tiene un encanto especial. Bueno, no está Guido, pero cuando nos juntamos con Nati y con Guido a hablar sobre comenzar a impulsar esto dentro de Medallia, tuvo un efecto multiplicador bastante bueno dentro de Medallia. Hubo como un impacto muy grande dentro de la gente, que dentro de todos los ingenieros, de decir, bueno, cómo impulsamos todo el desarrollo del producto, y además contribuimos comentando qué es lo que hacemos dentro de Medallia, aprendiendo de todas sus experiencias. De hecho, tengo amigos que conocí a través de esta meetup y que todavía seguimos intercambiando todo lo que hacemos dentro de la industria. Y es un placer muy grande introducir a Ali. Ali es VP de producto dentro de Medallia y se encarga de la parte de plataforma en particular. Va a hablar él está llevando adelante toda la parte de self-service dentro de Medallia, y además tiene una experiencia en la industria bastante larga construyendo plataformas. No sé si conocen Salesforce, pero bueno, acá la persona que le va a hablar es la responsable de toda la estrategia de APIs y de plataforma dentro de Salesforce. Y que para mí, yo viniendo de un mundo de plataforma y de un mundo de integraciones, prácticamente era como el emblema o el faro a seguir. Y dentro de esa experiencia que tiene ya de varios años Ali contribuyendo a mejorar las integraciones entre productos, a construir interfaces que sean usables tanto para desarrolladores como usuarios finales, me parece que es bastante interesante ver de lo que él tiene para contarnos sobre cómo es la estrategia de producto de construir una plataforma para Product Managers en Enterprise. Así que, Ali, it's all yours.
All right, good. So hopefully you said something good about me.
I doubt it, but
All right, great.
you feel well.
Well, thanks all everybody. I heard my name a couple of times and something that resembled VP of Platform. So thanks for coming out here to Medallia to listen to the talk that I'm going to have here for you. Somebody asked me, have I given this talk before? Actually, I've done it internally once at Salesforce and once at Medallia. It's kind of, I saw a repeating pattern of challenges that traditionally product managers actually typically have. But I'm actually pretty passionate about building platforms. And it was kind of like this balance of how do you build platforms, and how do you build application to deliver it, and how do you balance the two, which is a tough job for a product manager. So just a show of hands, who consider themselves a product manager in this room? Who is an engineer? Not now. Okay, who considers themselves a product owner? Oh, come on, everybody should raise their hand. Like, if you don't own it, then nobody else is. Okay.
Sorry, Ali, ¿se escucha bien o precisa el micrófono? No se escucha bien.
I'm going to use the microphone for you.
Ah, okay.
Sí.
Oh, you're gonna make me do two.
Yeah, sorry. What are you going to like speak louder about this? With the microphone.
I'll try. Does this work? Is this any better? Yeah. It's better? All right. Sorry, guys. Okay, you guys, you'll get the whole point of this talk and this slide and the robots and catamarans. I know it's kind of like throws everybody off when I start talking about robots and catamarans, but I actually got my team to actually start talking those things after this talk. So just a little bit about me. I know Jose asked you to discuss this, so I was just talking to somebody. I'm biology major by trade or by study. I did minor in computer science, but I ended up not becoming a doctor, which my mom wanted. But I became an engineer, computer engineer. I did switch over to kind of the quote-unquote dark side, which was the sales side, but actually it was great because how else can you actually learn and talk other than talking to customers and seeing what works and what doesn't work? But I've actually successfully made it back into product management. Which is actually at a level where I am, because I get to talk to customers, talk to sales and marketing, but I also get to work with engineers and build something. I don't have to code anymore, which is probably a good thing that I don't code anymore. So I think I'm kind of like the best of both worlds in what I do. My path, you can see a little bit, I was just talking to somebody that recognized a company I worked for a long time ago called CBeyond, who was bought, like he knows, was bought by Sun and then by Oracle, so maybe I worked at Oracle, I could say that. But I spent a long time at Cisco again. When Cisco, not because I like networking is cool if you guys like it, but I like applications, but Cisco was trying to get into the application business. And they were trying to put application messaging into the network device, which I thought was really cool. Everybody thought it was cool, it just didn't quite work. I went to another startup in integration, cast iron, got bought by IBM, left IBM, went to MuleSoft for a little bit. I don't know, anybody from Mule? Nope. I thought I'd see some Muleys here, but no. Salesforce for a number of years, and then over the last year and plus I've been at Medallia, leading platform. I run what we call platform product management, but that includes actually many things, more than what you traditionally think it's platform. All the cool stuff of platforms that actually I do have, all the APIs, infrastructure, all those kind of things. But I also own essentially how we set up the application, the entire setup piece, and towards our path towards self-service. About 11 PMs in my team, including 2 that we hired in Argentina, who were not PMs to begin with, but we're making them. They're actually doing awesome. So pretty excited about Medallia and everything else. So happy to talk to you guys. And one thing I'll just tell you guys, just from experience, I've been doing this for a long time. I won't tell you my age. Just trust me, it's a long time. The only thing I've learned is all the things not to do. I haven't learned, I don't know everything that I should be doing, but I definitely know the things I shouldn't be doing. So that's really what experience has taught me over the years. So, how many have seen this picture? Yeah, I haven't seen it. I've seen it floating around on LinkedIn. So, this talk was inspired by this. But one of the things as I took this picture, and I thought it was pretty cool because traditionally when people build products and engineers build products, they say, well, if I want to build a car, I first start with the wheels, then the axle, then the chassis and the body, and then 3 years down the line I have a product. And somebody put down, it's like, no, the definition of an MVP is actually you get something in the market quickly and soon and try it. I took this to my engineering team, they rejected it. Because at every point, it was a totally different platform. It's like it's a totally different manufacturing plant to do a skateboard versus a car. So we sat down and said, okay, well, how do we explain the same concept? And that's how we kind of got to rowboats, catamarans, to catamarans. So this is kind of the genesis of this talk. And you guys know, like engineers are very precise. Like, no, this won't work this way. So you can't actually talk just pure in concept. So one of the things in general that I found, and I'm sure you guys have experienced, is that getting product to market is pretty hard. Like getting a product that the market loves and getting it out. A lot of people have ideas, but the question is, how do you get something out to market that a product loves? And then now building a product on a platform is actually even harder. because it takes a lot to actually build a platform that's extensible. You can look at companies like Salesforce. Actually, one of the reasons that Salesforce has been very successful is they didn't come out with the best product or the most capable product out of the gate, but they actually came out with something that was very flexible and extendable. Back in the day, Siebel was actually one of the best software sales automation solutions out there. But Salesforce came in with a very small application and was able to take their customers away because they actually provided a very easy platform to actually configure and build everything you wanted, whereas Siebel was very difficult to actually configure and use, even though it was also a platform. So their key to success, I think, like over the years, like Salesforce has now had all the features, but every single time you say, well, does it have this? Like, no, but you can configure it to do this, or you can actually go build it with APIs or something like that. It can actually eventually do it. It just was built in an awesome platform. So doing that actually, it takes a lot. It's both art and science, and it takes a lot of work to kind of do this. And you need to just have the right mindset from the get-go. So part of the problem is like, what? Well, if it's so hard to build platforms, why do you want to actually build platforms? Well, resources are always limited. There's more features in your backlog than you actually have people and time to actually deliver, and there's always something more important that actually comes along. So how do you scale your teams without adding more people necessarily, because that is just cost. And the other thing is that you don't actually have all the good ideas. You don't know all the things that can be used for your product, and that's actually one of the things with Salesforce. Like, they created a marketplace where people did things that Salesforce didn't actually think people would do on their platform, and then it was cool. In some cases, they bought the applications, or companies in some cases, later on, they copied them and put them out there. So it was a great way to kind of let people innovate on it. That's the whole notion of platforms and APIs and everything else. Just like you don't know what else is possible out there. You don't have the market cornered on innovation. So for me, platform really, at the end of the day, just means the ability to scale. And I don't mean scale from a performance standpoint, but scale from an idea and innovation standpoint. If I have customers and partners that can actually build on my platform, they can actually do things that I can't do or I don't have time to do, then I can go focus on something else. And it's always the ability to say yes. And this is what sales and marketing always likes, is that you don't want to say, oh, can it do something? And you're like, no, it can't. Well, when can you deliver it? Well, 3 years from now, maybe. That doesn't work. Your customers always want to hear yes, but how do you say yes if you're not building on a platform? And yes, it's like a lot of things in terms of platform, which I'm not going to get into. It's like the technical aspects, APIs, your architecture, all those things, but that's not necessarily the topic of this discussion. One of the other things that's kind of interesting, if you're a product manager or if you know product managers, there was somebody put a blog out on LinkedIn that says, go give your product manager a hug. Product managers are under a lot of pressure, and I do agree. If you know one, give them a hug. There's a lot of pressure, essentially from everybody. Engineering wants to do certain things. Sales and marketing is talking about something else. Design is talking about, like, oh my god, like the UX has to be the best. And the product manager has to balance across all of these things and actually get something to market. It always feels like at any point in time, you're making a bunch of people unhappy with you. And it's like today, I made a bunch of people unhappy because I had to say no, because we have to look at our priorities and see what we can actually do and deliver something. And that's kind of like the world. So how do we build product to get to market and still build a great platform? That's kind of where the art is. Now, one of the things you can actually say is that, well, maybe the strategy of building platform and getting something to market really quickly, or GTM stands for go to market. Getting something to market very quickly is kind of like contradictory, because platforms take a long time to build. And it's kind of true. If you look at platform, you kind of build platforms layer by layer horizontally. And if you want to build a really good platform, you go talk to your engineer. You're like, well, maybe I need to build a data storage, and it has to be the best one. Then I build my processing layer. That has to be the best one. Then the interfaces, then the application. When can I get it? Well, talk to me about 3 years from now. And that's just not going to work for anybody. Yeah, it's just not going to work. And the way you get things to market is actually vertically. So you get something that actually goes across the entire stack. So how do you make this work, where you want to go horizontal, but you actually have to go vertical to deliver something to market? So that's where I think the challenge is. One of the things I'll talk to you about, like, and I'll show you an example, is there's a way to kind of do this where you actually build these layers one vertical at a time. So you keep delivering feature to market, and every single time you do, you build a piece of the platform layer. So let me take you through a simple scenario. Really simple. This is our requirement. We need to get from island A to island B. We need to do it in under 1 day. It's about 10 miles. And we need to transport about 2 or 3 people. This is our requirements here. It can't sink. There are sharks in the water, so you cannot sink. And I need to be able to travel as soon as I can. There's business that I need to do in island B, and it has to be reasonable. I don't have all the money.
We have to kill the shark.
We have to kill the, you can't kill the shark. There's a lot of sharks. Too many. This is the ocean. If it was one shark, we could do that, and I tell you to swim, but it's not going to work. Well, some of the other things we potentially as product managers need is like, well, is there competition? Who else is in this market? How big is it? Is it growing? Can I sell premium services? What else can I do? And then how much are people actually willing to pay? Now, we like to say, oh, well, go do your research. And most of the time you guys have seen it. It's like, you can go do some research, but until you have a product out in the market, you don't know. You go talk to somebody, it's like, well, if it's there, maybe. Until you get somebody to the market, then you don't know. So it's like important to get something to the market really fast to try out to see, okay, does it make sense or not? But you want to, like, if you have a vision, then you want to plan based on that vision. So first typical thing happens. This happens everywhere. We get in a room, it's like, oh, it'll be great. We can build a cruise ship. It can take 200 people, so we can charge more. It'll take 10 minutes. We're going to have a swimming pool. There's going to be a casino and nightclub. It's going to be awesome.
It's a clean fact.
Correct?
It's a clean fact.
Yeah, this is exactly. So the only challenge is it's going to take me 3+ years to actually do this, and it's going to cost me a lot of money, which typically this gets thrown out immediately. So then we go back to the drawing board and come back and say, okay, well, here's an MVP. I can give you a rowboat. It satisfies your needs, 1 to 3 people, less than 1 day, 3 to 4 hours. I can build it in 3 weeks. We've got really good builders. We're going to reinforce the hull, but it can tip over, so you just cannot stand on the boat. So just sit down. So this is an MVP. And the only thing is you actually have to row. So again, it's an MVP. I can get it to market, give you this. It's not going to cost me a whole lot to do it. The other option is, if you want something competitive, I can actually build a sailboat. You can take more people, under 2 hours, so even faster. It'll take a little longer to produce, and we'll reinforce it. It won't tip unless there's a strong wind. So it's pretty good. No rowing, we got the wind, and it costs a little bit more money. So that would be like my V2 of my product. And then the other one, market leading. Full-on catamaran. So if you notice, there's a pattern here. I go from one hull, I put a sail on it, so I'm building on the same platform. Then I put 2 and put a sail on it. So now I've built something. I can transport up to 10 people, one at less than 1 hour. Super reinforced, very stable. Even if the wind comes along, it's got 2 hulls, it's actually super stable. And it's going to be super fast, no rowing, takes me longer, 15 weeks of production time, and that's what the cost is. It's triple the amount, but it's going to be awesome. Now, most companies are going to start building with this one. Everybody's like, all right, fine, let's just build the MVP. Let's get something in the market. Let's see if it works. If it works, then we'll build the sailboat. If that works, great. Then we'll build the catamaran. So we keep adding onto this. But one of the thoughts, and part of the reason that my engineering team originally liked this analogy was that it was a boat, then I put a sail on it. Then I put 2 boats and a board and a sail in the middle. I'm like, okay, then I don't have to change the manufacturing plant. It's essentially the same plant. So that's why the car analogy didn't work for them. So one of the things that you want to do is, with vision in mind, like really thinking about, okay, what are all the things we want to do? And think about, okay, potentially what your roadmap is. Not that you're going to necessarily build that, but you can actually envision, okay, well, here's how we can do it. As a product manager, you sit down and do your roadmap. you start with it's like, okay, well, it definitely needs to have a strong hull. So that part you cannot compromise. You can't go build something with paper. Like, it has to be strong. A shark hits it, it can't sink. You need to get something to market fast and check the demands. Like, we don't know. Maybe they'll want to pay for faster boat services when we put it out there. Maybe they won't. If they don't, then we won't build a catamaran. We'll just stick with a sailboat or a rowboat. So that part is actually really important to kind of test it out. Be able to go from like single to double to increase stability and capacity. And like, okay, you know what? Initially, it's going to be a certain level of capacity and certain level of stability, but we can make this more stable as we kind of go. Let's see how the market goes. So you couldn't stand, and then you can actually stand on it. We can increase from manual rowing, to actually adding a sail, so it can actually go by itself, and it's much faster. And then something that nobody tells you, but you always have back in your mind, is like, it has to be easy to use and minimal training requirements. That original cruise ship, actually, one of the things we didn't put down was it required a big staff to actually run the cruise ship. Versus a boat, we can put one person or two people in it to actually run it. So one of the things that you end up doing, and this is a hypothetical roadmap for essentially any platform, is you can actually look at that same concept and apply it to features. So what I talked about was actually delivering something vertically to the market, but you can actually look at every feature that you're delivering, say V1, and you can actually say, well, and these are just hypothetical requirements, by the way. I just put typical stuff down and say an application or a platform. You can actually say, well, the data storage has to be rock solid. I can't lose data. So I'll build that to a catamaran level. I'll make sure that that is solid. Reporting W1, don't need it. I'm just not going to build it. Monitoring, rowboat is okay. You can do tail on a log or something like that, and you can actually get away with it. Scheduler, cron works, get away with it. Same thing with like a flow builder or like triggers, stuff like that. You can say, look, these are things that I will build at a rowboat level. So it's actually taking that vertical strand analogy and actually now looking at feature by feature to see at what level do I need to build it. Now, one of the things with this is, if it's not apparent, in some cases you're actually building a little bit of debt that you're going to redo, but you're building it knowingly. You're building it because you want to get something to market fast, not because you don't know how to build it, but you're like, I don't need to have the best scheduling service to get something to market, but I need to make sure that the data is not lost. If the data is lost, then nobody cares about the application. The next level, I don't have to worry about the data storage, but I want to focus on a couple other things. We realize maybe the flow builder needs to be super extended, and actually that's what customers really want. Great, so we'll go build the catamaran version of the best flow builder out there. Triggers, we're going to keep as it is. And then some of the other ones we looked at, it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe some of these will extend and increase the capacity or the capability of it, but we'll build it to, if you imagine, like the sailboat level of that feature. So you kind of go on, so you kind of get your V2 out. Again, you get something out to market faster. Yes, you have some debt. You're doing some rework between rowboat and sailboat, but you're doing that intentionally to get something out to market. The next level would be, well, great. So I got my V3, I got more time. Some of the things I'm going to take to catamaran, maybe something I still don't take to a catamaran level. But this actually allows me time to kind of get to market. And one of the things that I would say is that one of the biggest pressures you will have as a product manager or as an engineer is actually sales and marketing. If there's no money coming in, it's really hard to continue running a business or expanding or hiring. So to justify, like one of the things that people can actually do is like, no, everything has to be a catamaran. Like, that won't work. That will take too long. People will lose patience. If you have investors, they will lose patience. They're going to leave, and you're not going to be able to test your market. But if you actually show some success, they'll probably be willing to invest in your company more or give you more money because you showed some level of success. You can actually go to the next level. So it's a strategy to kind of get something out there fast, try it out, and then be able to incur some debt and then actually just build on that as you kind of go.
Hypothetically choking.
I'm sorry?
Hypothetically choking.
Yes. It is always hypothetical till you start doing it. That's what most talks are. So one of the things, and this is, by the way, there's no science I can tell you,
which one you should build as a catamaran, which one you should build as a rowboat or sailboat. You generally need to sit down and look at and make good judgment. And some of that comes with experience. You're gonna have to look at to see, okay, what things are you willing to build as a rowboat? What things you should really build as a catamaran? Like one of the things that's important, even as a product manager, and it's like those product managers that probably didn't come through engineering, typically it's like, oh, forget the performance. Like I don't care about performance. Like no, it's actually important because if it doesn't work, if it sits there for 3 minutes and it's circling and circling, nobody's going to use your product. So it can't do that. That is part of the experience that needs to be important. It also if 100 people log in and if the server just falls over, then great. It can't do that either. So you need to invest in some areas, but you need to be wise in terms of what you do. But you can't also take the extreme engineering path. Oh, well, everything has to be awesome. That just takes too long. So how do you get this balance between awesome and fast? One of the other things, if you kind of build the catamaran in V1, there's no way. If every feature is a catamaran, there's no way you're going to ship anything. Actually, there's no way you will have a job at the end of whatever the period is. Somebody will lose patience. Could be your investors, could be your manager or what have you. And you actually definitely need to invest in your design. And I didn't put design things in there, but that's some of the things that actually imply. You do need to spend time on the design. And quality and performance, like I mentioned, those are not things you can just ignore. If it's buggy, that's not where you shortcut. You rather cut down a feature than put a buggy software out there, or if it doesn't perform. And one of the things you also don't want to do, and this is the whole point of an MVP, is you don't want to overbuild until you actually have data. Data has actually become one of the more important things in a product manager's life. Is, well, are people using it or not? I built a feature. Does anybody use it? If nobody uses it, then why would I go invest in there anymore? So that's actually one of the terms. MVF stands for minimum viable feature. They already talks about products. We sometimes talk about actually a feature that we want to deliver. It's what's the minimum thing we can actually deliver that actually works and satisfies a requirement, and we can actually see if people like it or not. Because a lot of times you talk to 5 customers. You can't talk to every customer. You talk to sample size, and they say they like something. You're like, okay, makes sense. We thought it was a good idea. You go build it, and then you try it out and see how it goes. And then it's okay to incur debt. It's debt is terrible, but we do it all the time. Sometimes we do it because we run fast, and we're like, okay, that's fine, we'll take care of that later. But sometimes, that's okay. I'm going to hard code this piece. I'm against hard coding, by the way, but sometimes it's fine. Well, I'll tell you an example. One of the things, Salesforce, this week is Dreamforce for Salesforce. Salesforce's big event. 150,000 people are in San Francisco. That's why I'm here. I did that for 10 years. 10 years that I went to Dreamforce. The last 2 years I have not. Salesforce launched a product that I built all the platform underneath. It was just launched this year called Lightning Data. It's actually a data marketplace to bring data from external to customers in Salesforce. And what we actually did was, I was part of a group that we built, and we actually had data, and we actually were hosting data, and we're integrating that with Salesforce. And it was like, hey, this is great. Why can't we do this with all this other data? And then we looked at it and said, well, we can't host everybody's data. That's too much work. So what they wanted was the integration and the plumbing and the ease of use that people actually liked about the product that we built in Salesforce. And every data vendor would call us how can we do this? We went to Salesforce executives. They're like, oh, well, yeah, this is great, but we're not going to fund you to do this. So we kind of built the platform secretly. We found projects that actually would allow us to build pieces of this in the same way, to slowly build the platform, because we knew it was going to be good. We just couldn't get the funding for it, specifically for that, because nobody said, oh, this is going to take too long. So one of the things that Salesforce wanted to do was, every single time you put an address in Salesforce, as soon as you save it, we geocode the data, or Salesforce geocodes the data. And my team and I built that. And one of the things, the first day that we had to do was turn that on, and 30 billion addresses had to be geocoded. So performance had to be good, quality had to be good, but data mapping was not required because it was 3 fields. the longitude, latitude, and accuracy. And then it was address. So we didn't have to kind of build extensive mapping. I knew exactly the data. So we kind of skipped over field mapping and said, don't need that. We'll hard code that piece. We'll come back. But it needs to be semi-real time. It needs to do 30 billion records because that's what Salesforce deals with. It needs to have all these kind of things. And we built that one. And then we added another data service later on, and we built a little bit more. By the time I was leaving, people were like, oh, this could be a data marketplace. And I'm like, no, really? But we slowly built that, and actually finally my team who was there actually finally launched this, so I'm actually pretty proud the fact that we did this. But we did this essentially building vertical app by vertical app, and in the case of Salesforce was one data service by one data service, but we built the different layers of the platform to now they can actually launch it, and they only have, I think, 5 or 6 data vendors with a long list of other data vendors that are going to be onboarded. So it's pretty cool to kind of build that platform because now they can actually extend it and do a whole lot more with it. That's all I have for you guys.
So why don't you work like with kind of use cases instead of what do you call? How do you define your things?
I had a use case. Use case. This was my use case.
For your B1, for your B2.
Well, it was the same thing. Like what I did was I still had the same general use case was the same. My requirements, my acceptance criteria was slightly different, but I still had the same initial essential use cases. Now,
the same. How do you did you communicate your roadmap? How does it feel when you providing a robot, but people will say, I don't want to have a robot forever?
yeah, that's great. So actually what I do is I can show a roadmap and say, okay, in 3 weeks I can give you this. While this is in market, I can start building this. This will take me triple the time. I can show you a roadmap when I'm going to deliver that.
You're kind of committing to your, in some sense, because when you're a product manager, you have to commit to roadmaps.
You commit to roadmaps, but then you also at the same time, one of the things you actually do is, whichever we kind of likes is, you get something to market, you get it to your salespeople or you put it on your website, it's selling, it's generating money, then it's easier to kind of then fund the next one. If you put it out and it doesn't sell and it just falls flat, I'm like, okay, well then why go build the next one? Because there's no market. There's only one person that wanted a robot. It's like, great, we built the robot, we're done. Why go build more? So yeah, that's generally kind of how we do it. So it is use cases. Yes, we are putting a roadmap in. When this is in market, if I put this and this is, hey, this is great, and somebody says, hey, but if we went faster, we can sell premium services, we can charge more, our margins go up, great, then we can kind of do that. That's essentially kind of how you would do it. It's like you piece by piece, slowly by slowly, you build all the features and put it out there. Yeah, you can come up with actually a roadmap. You can show it. This could be a multi-year roadmap. But if it becomes more than 1 year, frankly, it's just like, yes, I'll do it next year. But you're not going to get into details because who knows by the time you get there. But if it's 3 months to 9 months, the first 3 months you can say, okay, with certainty, yes, I can do this. The next 3 months, like, okay, well, I think I can do this in this time. And then after that, it's like maybe, kind of. But as you get closer, and that's how just Agile also works.
How would you recommend us to form our teams with technology, UX, or any other parts of the team, of the product team as a whole?
How do you, I'm sorry.
How would you recommend us to form our teams?
Oh, to form the teams.
Yes.
In the sense of, like, help me a little bit.
Quantity of people, which roles, relations between product, IT, UX, in quantity of people.
That really, I mean, I think it depends. I'll tell you one thing is, there's a restaurant chain in U.S. I don't know if there's other places called Denny's.
I think that he talked about the minimum numbers.
I don't know.
The relations, for example, it's one product owner, 5 people from UX, 10 from technology, 1 user research. But I don't know, how would you recommend our teams?
I think it really depends. I think Typically, yes, a product owner, your engineering team only determines your velocity. So if you got 3, depending on what you want to build, it can take you 3 months or 6 months. If you have 5, it can take you a little bit less. That really depends on what you have. Designers, I think, is where people take shortcuts a lot, which is actually important. User research, I think as you become more mature, then you kind of invest in that. The one thing I'll tell you is like wherever you're missing something, that's what the product manager has to do. So if you're missing user research, then the product manager does user research. If you're missing designer, then the product manager does designer. Hopefully if you're missing code, hopefully the product manager knows how to code if they're going to be coding. But essentially, like you're the manager, if somebody doesn't show up to work, the business still has to be open, so you end up having to do that work. But I think in terms of generally maturity of companies, like user research is one of the last things you end up hiring, because you, as a product manager, you turn out there, you're talking to customers, you're doing what needs to be done, figuring it out. User research is great when like you're getting a little like more mature. Now you want to put something in the market. It's like, hey, we're going to put this, and we do different things with user research. We test to see usability of product. We test to see if they will buy a product if we build it. We test to see if how much they're willing to pay for something. So we use the research capability for different things. I think if you're small, that's probably one thing. But designer, you can get away with a contractor, but don't totally forego design, because design is definitely key. Having it consistent, it's better to be consistent and bad than be inconsistent and kind of sometimes good. So design actually helps you with a lot of these kind of decisions and things like that. And hopefully if they got experience and tell you, it's like, oh, don't do it this way because users don't like it, or it gives you this other kind of idea in terms of how to build it. So it's not a pure technical aspect. So.
Don't you need on every step to plan a way to get feedback from the users?
Absolutely.
Because I'm thinking about the Airbnb case that it didn't work for years until they realized that they needed better features. Yep.
No, so one thing, if you guys know what Medallia does, we're big on feedback. We do feedback on everything. So absolutely, so getting feedback, and actually that's one of the things that in terms of one of the things you want to do as a product manager, that I talked about, data is actually important. You want like usage, depending on what kind of product you're building, like if it's a consumer data and things like that, like definitely usage is important. Sometimes with enterprise data, and especially like Medallia administration, there's like 3 users maybe in a company that actually use it. And the usage is not going to be big on the administration, but it's going to be big on the reporting and analytics and all those sides. So I can't necessarily like sometimes get feedback from them, but I can actually see if they're building things or more. So you want that, but you also want to get feedback. Okay, is this working for you? Like, did you use this? And sometimes like, hey, nobody's using this feature. Do they even know it exists? We definitely had the same issue at Salesforce. Salesforce actually at one point like had so many features, people didn't even know it existed. So Salesforce actually, if you guys haven't gone, they did something pretty cool called Trailhead, which was an easy way to kind of walk people through the various features, and then they could actually go try it out, and then they set it up so through their APIs, they could actually tell you if you did the work or not, and say, yeah, this was great. So a different way, but there's also things like WalkMe or whatever that can actually help users kind of walk through applications. But yeah, you want to get your users to use something, get their feedback, and we do this with our application. Like we have the always the always on feedback on the right side or something like that, where you click on it and it says feedback. But sometimes, actually, if they do an action, we want to ask them a question after that action. Hey, how was this flow? Did this work for you or not? So we wait for them to kind of do that and then ask them. So yeah, absolutely.
When you wanna do the next step, like building a ship after making the catamaran, how do you convince your investors, your team, and everyone to throw everything away, or most of it, and build a ship?
Well, but you're not. So here's the thing. If you're at this stage and you think you're ready to move to the ship, then you've shown success, and hopefully at multiple levels, you're showing demand, and you can go back and say, look, my customers want more. Now I can actually, there's this island C that's 100 miles away, and I can take 200 people there. It's like, because otherwise you're like, well, for island A and B, 10 miles as a ship, like by the time you start to ship, you reach the other side is worth it. So I think showing success is the key. It's just like, how do I get to the next? And the other side of it, that just so you guys know, there's a lot of times you want to build something, but there's like the next big thing. Maybe, I don't know what the next big thing is. Maybe the next big thing is airplanes, not ships, to get to the next level. So you have to kind of weigh
Sadat to kill the sharks.
He wants to keep killing the sharks, man. It's like, sharks are okay, man. Sharks are good. It's just the bad people we're going to throw in the ocean. So, yeah, it just becomes a question. Like, this is, like, I tell, like, this is kind of like my daily battle. Like, I want to build so many things and always have to go back and say, how do I get funding for this? And we just went through our, what we call our fiscal 19, which is, we're 1 month off, so this year is fiscal 18 for us, even though it's 2017. Next year is fiscal 19, even though it's 2019, 2018. We started with a bunch of ideas, and a bunch of them, like, I can show you my list. Crossed out, crossed out, crossed out. Okay, these 4 we're going to do. So then I also have to be creative. And actually some places like, oh, okay, well, this is crossed out, but this other product actually needs some of these features. So how do I go build a rowboat? So this is a discussion with my engineering team. Say, okay, guys, can we at least build it on the right framework? So then I can actually leverage it. Like, I just need simple file upload mapping, but I want to build all these other cool things afterwards. So when you're building, have that in mind. So your engineering team actually knows what to build. Because if you don't tell them where you want to take this, then they'll build a rowboat. It's like, well, but I now want to add a sail. It's like, no, it doesn't support a sail. Sorry, you didn't tell us that you need to support the sail. Like, we have to start from scratch. Then you're screwed. Because then it's hard. But if you build it, then you say, hey guys, a few more days, I can put a sail on this, and now I can get something better. And then by that time, hopefully you'll be able to get the funding.
Yeah, but someday you get into the point that your product is not more scalable as fast as it was before.
Yep.
And then you have to build from scratch.
Hopefully, yeah, it's hard. We did this at Salesforce. We did it not because of performance, but like Salesforce changed their entire UI based on, I don't know, it's like, did we use React or was it Angular at the time that Salesforce kind of started? But they changed their entire UI. They ended up having to invest quite a bit, and for about 2 years, almost no new features. It was really just taking the old features with the new UI, new design, but we had to make that investment. It was really hard. Everybody hated it going in, because like, but my customers want these new features, but we're like, no, but we need to do this new technology investment. Actually, when it ended up coming, believe it or not, if you got the right people in the company, it came from Benioff. He basically does that, like just pulls the lever and says, nope, this is what the company needs to move to the next level, because the existing platform just doesn't get us to the next level. And they were getting competition from like the likes of Microsoft that had better UIs and more intuitive UIs, and the old UI, you couldn't do that with it. So we're going through this at Medallia right now. We're kind of like, hey, we need to, like, this was technology was built, I don't know, 5-10 years ago when they started, and keep building on it. We can't build on it anymore. We just have to throw it away, or not throw it away. It's there. But we build a brand new one, and then we migrate customers to this new one. So nobody likes it, but sometimes you have to change the engine. So he's an engineer, clearly. and performance and quality, I think you were like, yes, that's important.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to ask you about your biggest challenge and your biggest fail and your learnings from that.
Oh my God.
You have some experience.
Do we have cognac or something like that? We can sit here and just start talking.
You can be briefly.
My biggest challenge, my biggest failure, and what was the last one?
Your learnings from that.
Okay. I actually go back to my.
Yeah, your complex.
Biggest challenge?
I always learn. So if I learned, it's not been that big of a failure. I think my biggest failure, to be honest, was when I was an engineer. I thought I knew it all. I thought sales and marketing were stupid. I built the best product. They just don't know how to sell it. Until I joked when I said I went to the dark side. It was actually the best side. Because I went there, I'm like, oh my God, I was such an idiot. Like, this is what the customers are saying, and I'm sitting back and saying, this is the best thing anybody's ever built. But I never talked to the customers, so I didn't know. I talked to the customers, but I was never there trying to sell it. And then when you go there, that's pretty humbling, because the customer says, this is crap. What are you going to say? Like, they're the ones with the money. It's like you can't argue with the customer. That's why. So I'd say that was, but I actually learned from it. So actually, I'm pretty happy. I highly recommend if you ever want to become a PM, becoming not a pure sales guy, but the sales engineer. A lot of respect for sales engineers, because they're the ones who actually make the product shine. As product managers, you love them, you nurture them, but they also can bring you feedback. They're like, what they say is actually as close to truth as possible, because they're like, look, I showed this, I did what you said, but it just doesn't work. The customer wants this few things. So definitely, I was on that side, so it was pretty humbling, and it was actually a great experience. My biggest challenge, I don't know. I think that's huh?
Professional English.
I was going to say, personally, no. Professionally, I think it's ongoing. It's always like, what do you build? Like, how do you get this stuff to market? I think I've had a lot of ideas, but the question is, how do you get it out there? And I think one of the biggest challenges that it's continuous is how do you communicate what you want to build? Because you got this great thing in your head, but if you can't communicate it precisely, and I'll tell you, like one of the things, especially like I've been at startups, but also been at big companies. But even if you're a startup, you want to talk to a VC, you can't you guys know what Fisher-Price is? The toy they build kid toys. Yeah, you have to build slideware that looks like Fisher-Price, because you go into a room with execs, they don't know everything you know. If you start with the detail, they're going to lose. As soon as they go to their phone, you're done with that meeting. So you need to have big pictures, big green, yellow buttons, so they can actually understand and pay attention. So if you, like I always tell my product managers, like Fisher-Price your slides, because it's too much details. Like if it's all text, nobody's going to listen, because nobody's going to sit there and read it, and then they're like, they got more important things to do, and they go. So I think communication is continuously. I don't know that I'm great at it, but it's like definitely something that we spend a lot of time. And actually, again, one of the things Salesforce definitely has I left Salesforce not because I didn't like it, but Medallia I thought it was a cool opportunity. But I really like Salesforce. I still have a lot of friends there. But it actually taught me a lot. Like when I got there, like, oh no, these slides won't do. Like our slides have to be the best slides. Like the bar was just so much higher. So you spend a lot of time working on your deck and your slides and just getting that pitch. But what's the saying that says if I had somebody wrote like a long email and said, or a long letter and said, if I had more time, I'd write you something shorter. Because if you have more time, you'll be more precise, more to the point, versus if you don't have time, you just like everything in your brain you just dump, and people don't know what you're talking about. So you have to spend a lot of time formulating what you want. And you want to go talk to VCs, you want to get funding, you want to get your ship funded. You have to come up with a good reasoning and something to kind of convince them. And then if you get them past that one, they're like, okay, great, here's the detailed plan. I'd say that's typical. That's an ongoing challenge, I think.
Thank you.
Sure.
No.
All right.
So, what you can suggest to be the best professional?
I'm sorry?
What you can suggest to make something in your life to be like you, for example?
I don't know.
It's a huge question.
In terms of to be successful in your profession, is that what?
No, what I mean about like to be a product management.
Oh, to be a product manager?
Yeah.
I think we're just discussing this over drinks upstairs. There's no class to make you a product manager. There's nothing.
For this reason. Exactly.
Yeah, there's nothing in school that teaches you. There's some books here and there. There's meetups, ProductTank, things like that, the way you kind of learn. It's a tough one. I have people in the U.S. They think, oh, if you get an MBA, then that's how you become a product manager. To be honest, most what I look for in product manager is somebody who's technical enough. Because these days, you're actually most product managers, at least in our companies I work with, like you sit with your engineering team, so you have to speak their language. But you also need to have a business sense and I can be able to put you in front of a customer so you can actually talk to a customer. Some engineers here not, but a lot of engineers you cannot put in front of a customer. They're too much detail and too much bad news. So, oh no, this can't be done. So you can't put everybody in front of a customer. So you need to have that kind of a balance. It's a personality thing. You need to be somewhat of a sales guy or a saleswoman. You need to be able to sell because it's your product. If you can't sell it, then nobody else can sell it. Be able to give presentations, talks, things like that. So having that ability, and not everybody has it, but it can be developed. Like all these can be developed. There's nobody that perhaps has all these. But I think it's a mix. Having a good business sense. To be honest, MBA, I could do without it. I don't have one. I started biology, minored in computers, and I think I did okay. I think one of the things I'll tell you, like I've hired one MBA intern. She was really good. Still is. She's at Salesforce. I need to hire her back to Medallia. But yeah, I remember she was. I was like, well, she was interning with us. She was still going through school. I'm like, did they tell you you're the CEO of like PMs or CEOs of their product? She's like, yeah. I'm like, wrong. You're actually not the CEO of your product. You're a COO of your product at best. It's not your word that goes because you have to sell. First of all, you have to sell the idea. Then you have to go sell your engineering team that this is also a good idea, so they would actually be excited to work on it. So you have to sell everybody, and at the end of the day, the engineer's like, I don't like to build it this way, I want to build this. Or design says, well, I'm going to do it this way. So you kind of have influence, but you don't have full control. Yeah, at some point, like at the end of the day, the product owner, says, okay, this is what I consider an MVP. I went and did my research, I talked to customers and everybody else, but it's not like, I think, calling it a product owner and being only the product manager, that's why I said who's a product owner. Everybody should raise their hands. Everybody's a product owner. So you kind of have to be a COO of a company, not the CEO of a company. Because CEO says, we march this way and we march that way. But there's only one CEO typically in a company. And that was the case, like even at Salesforce or even at Medallia. Product manager's like, but I had this idea. I'm like, it doesn't matter. You have this idea. It's just, he or she says we go this way, then we either leave the company or we march this way. It's kind of like, seriously, it's like the army in that sense, because they pay the paycheck and you do it. But you can actually go trying to influence that, but you also need to then be able to sell everybody. So that's the hard, like the thing that you kind of need to learn and do. So, but other than that, to be honest,
negotiator. You didn't say negotiator. I think the best way to describe product management is having a good negotiator.
Yep.
Because you can try all the needs and do's and make them all happy.
Totally agree.
Finish your voice.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure.